Hey guys, Howdy, it's Matt Adlard here. Now, have you ever wanted to conquer bread baking, but maybe you don't have the confidence, or you don't have the right recipe? Well, fear not, because today, I'm going to show you how to make an authentic Italian focaccia. It's got rosemary and red onion, and it's crispy on the outside and slightly soft and pillowy in the center. I'm going to walk you through this step by step. You don't need any fancy equipment whatsoever. All you need is your hand and a mixing bowl. And I know once you bake this, you're going to be so happy with yourself. So, are you ready to bake? Let's go. You're going to start with the wet ingredients for your focaccia. So I've got some tepid water in a jug and I'm going to add in some good quality olive oil. On top of that, I'm going to add my yeast. You can use fresh or instant, both work absolutely fine. And you're going to stir that up until it is dissolved. Now, into a large bowl, I've got bread flour and I'm going to add in salt and sugar and pour that yeasty water over the top. You can also use plain flour here, that's absolutely fine. Bread flour just gives the bread a slightly softer crumb. And just stir it together with a spatula. We don't need to knead it or do anything crazy. All you want to do is stir it together until that flour has absorbed all of the moisture. Cover up the bowl and then we're going to pop that to one side for 30 minutes. Next, we're going to make a very quick rosemary olive oil, which is going to infuse so much flavor into the bread. So I've got a few stalks of rosemary here, and I'm going to use my finger and my thumbs just to strip the leaves off the rosemary stalk, and then take a sharp knife and rattle through these. You want to chop them up really nice and fine because we're going to put some whole rosemary leaves later on. Tip those into a bowl with some olive oil and just mix it up, set it to one side, and that can infuse while the bread proves. Now we're going to talk about kneading. In actual fact, we're not going to knead this like we would a traditional bread. We're going to use a method called stretching and folding. And what this simply is a series of actions. So we take the dough, we stretch it out, and we fold it in itself. And this helps to develop the gluten and the strength in the dough. We're going to do this about 3 times until the dough is nice and soft and pillowy. And now we're going to start with the stretching and the folding of the dough. Now, a great tip whenever you're doing this is to have a bowl of water next to you. This just stops the dough from sticking to you as you're doing it. And you're going to lightly wet your hand and stick it underneath the dough. Get right down to the center, grab a piece of the dough, lift it up, stretch it out, and pull it into the center. You're going to repeat this about 5 times. With this size of dough, you should get about 5 stretch and folds out. Every time you do the stretch and fold, turn the bowl 90 degrees, get your hand underneath and stretch the other part of the dough. And this is how we're going to knead. We're not going to use a machine. We're not going to knead it for 5 minutes. It's this stretching and folding that is going to do all the work for us. Cover that up and leave it for 45 minutes at room temperature. After 45 minutes, you should see that your dough is starting to rise up nicely. There should be a few air bubbles poking out, and we're going to do the exact same process. But what you notice as you're doing the stretching and the folding is the dough is much lighter and it is much more elastic. And we want to keep the volume and the lightness that the dough has because that is key to the focaccia. So when you're doing the stretching and the folding, try and be as gentle as possible. And we're going to do the exact same thing as we did the first time. Do it 5 times around the bowl, stretching it all into the center, then cover it and leave it for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, you'll notice just how much your dough has grown. There are even more air bubbles poking up everywhere. And as you lift your hand underneath to perform your stretch and your folds, you'll notice it's very pillowy and very soft. But this air in there is key to the focaccia. So don't go crazy trying to knock those air bubbles out. Just be very gentle but firm with your stretching and your folding because we want to maintain that volume and the air that we've built as the dough has been proving. We're going to do the exact same thing we've been doing the last 2 times. We're going to do 5 turns and we're going to cover it up for a final 30 minutes. We're going to move on to the assembly of the focaccia. So I've got a little bit of that rosemary olive oil which I'm pouring onto the base of a baking tray, and just use your hand to spread it out and get it to the edges and lift out your proved focaccia dough. Now initially this is going to be a little bit difficult to get to the edges, but just use your fingertips and press the dough into the corners of the tin. If it doesn't quite fit, don't worry because later on it will prove up and it will fill the tin. Spread over some more of that rosemary olive oil and then hit it with a big pinch of sea salt flakes. This is going to add a lot of flavor later on. Cover it up and let it prove for 60 minutes. After 60 minutes, you should see that your dough has proved up really nicely and filled the tray. Top it with some more of that rosemary olive oil along with some fresh rosemary leaves. Then I've got some thinly sliced red onion which I'm going to add on the top, and we're going to create the iconic dimple effect. So take your fingers and press them into the bottom of the focaccia dough and you end up with this beautifully bubbly dough. Onto the bake. Your oven should be preheated to around 200 degrees Celsius. You're going to put that focaccia straight in the oven and you're going to bake it for about 30 to 35 minutes it should be a slight golden colour once it's done. When the focaccia comes out the oven, it should be a nice light golden colour. What we're going to do is, as it's hot, just take a little bit more olive oil and paint this on top of the bread. This is going to give it a really nice gloss and shine, and you should be left with a focaccia that is slightly crispy on the outside and then soft and pillowy in the middle. So there you have it, homemade, authentic Italian focaccia. And the great thing about this recipe is if you don't have red onion or rosemary, don't worry, because you could use olives, tomatoes, garlic. Throw whatever you've got in the fridge onto that bread, and I promise you, it's gonna taste delicious. Now, we would love to see your creations, so please make sure you tag @VitalityUK, and I'll see you soon for more bakes. Bye.